Not only did Derek Carr create a market for somebody like Kirk Cousins, and Aaron Rodgers is probably contributing to that, but I think Jalen Ramsey also helped Kirk Cousins a little bit. I'll tell you why in just a second here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It is exactly that, your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On NFL podcast that you can find wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you check us out, whether you watch or listen. We'll be there. Just tap into that location each and every day so you do not miss an episode. An episode that on Wednesdays has my brother David Harrison of Locked On Commanders and Locked On NFL Squad Show riding shotgun with me as usual. We'll talk about the hottest coaching seat in the NFL at the end of the show. It's no brainer to me. It's a couple of them, and they all reside in the same state. And we're going to talk about the people in Ohio. The trade market created by Jalen Ramsey. What I mean by that is there might be a team that needs to free some cap space up that has been a little stingy with the way that they want to do it with the quarterback situation, like Atlanta. And that's where we're going to start. We're going to start at the top with Kirk Cousins has a new market. Why do I say Jalen Ramsey affects the market? We understand that Derek Carr, David, got hurt. So now that creates a situation where teams may draft differently. And Aaron Rodgers is thinking whether or not he wants to go hang out in the cave and all of that stuff. But the thing that we don't get about Jalen Ramsey is this. Jalen Ramsey could go to a team like Atlanta that has a backup quarterback that makes a lot of money, that they're acting like they don't want to trade, but now they have to trade him and get rid of him in order to facilitate a Jalen Ramsey deal that's going to have him making $21 million a year. So do you think all of these things, the three things that I just mentioned, have made Kirk Cousins more tradable before the NFL draft?
I mean, yeah, I think everything, at the end of the day has some sort of impact on any big name player, you know what I mean? And Kirk Cousins certainly, even though his performance last year wasn't necessarily the greatest in the world, I think he certainly is still one of those big names in the league. And, the Miami Dolphins, like, they have a reason to potentially want to bring in a veteran backup quarterback. Like, the question then kind of, Kirk Cousins, comes off with this like good guy persona and, gee golly, oh gosh type of dude. But like, look, make no mistake about it, that dude, he's vicious if he needs to be, you know what I mean? Like, he knows what he wants. So the question really is he willing to go to Miami and be the backup? You know what I mean? And if he's not willing to do that, like, Miami's not going to trade for a dude that's going to, hold out and be like, no, I'm not coming there. You know what I mean? So then it just kind of gets convoluted all those different ways. I'll tell you right now, if you're Atlanta and Kirk's not your guy, like, I mean, I roll those dice, send him to New Orleans. I mean, don't be scared. Send him to New Orleans. I don't know if New Orleans wants him. Like, that's the other side of this, right? But there's at least a theory out there that this Derek Carr stuff and the shoulder injury and everything is really just Derek trying to get his way out of New Orleans. So if Derek is driving the boat or driving the train of getting out of New Orleans, then maybe the Saints would be really willing to bring in Kirk Cousins. And like I said, don't be scared about it. You know what I mean? The Commanders traded a pick to the Philadelphia Eagles. They drafted a cornerback. The Commanders came back later, drafted a different cornerback. Both cornerbacks turned out to be pretty good. The Eagles won the Super Bowl, but I wouldn't look at the trade they made with the Commanders as the reason they won the Super Bowl. Certainly Cooper DeJean contributed, obviously getting an interception on his birthday, all that stuff. But, I don't know, man. Like, it's interesting how these trade markets work, especially for quarterbacks that are supposed to get paid a lot of money. But there's also a lot of different cap maneuvering that teams can do for guys to get a lot of money. If you bring in Kirk Cousins, he's got 3 years left on his deal. You're the new GM. You can tack on 2 void years, spread that cap hit out a little bit. Like, there's a lot of things you can do out here. So it's interesting. But Jalen Ramsey is, I mean, a player of that caliber, he affects every trade market, I feel like.
Yeah, I do too. And some of this is me thinking, okay, everybody in Miami is always worried about Tua. The other part of it is, all right, now, what if I heard Albert Breer report came out that in Albert Breer's report, it said that there were some people that believed that the trades didn't happen because Cousins doesn't want what happened last year to happen this year, that he wants to wait till after the draft because he has a no trade clause. If that's the case, a team like Pittsburgh, that Atlanta may have wanted to play hardball with, or a team like, say, if San Francisco moves off of Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
All of those teams that don't have a quarterback, we talk about Cleveland. At that point, if Atlanta is being pushed because they want to acquire Jalen Ramsey, who Raheem Morris is very, very familiar with, and they need to get off of some of that Kirk Cousins cash, this is how they could probably do it and maybe convince Kirk to give up that background. But I can understand Kirk having trepidation. Let's hear from Locked On Falcons host Aaron Freeman talking about the likelihood that Kirk Cousins is still there when the season starts.
Yeah, I can sit here and say with 99% confidence that it's probably not going to happen, right? Because we've had basically 3 starting quarterbacks go down with injuries before the season-ending injuries before the season. Like, guys get hurt all the time in training camp, but it doesn't prompt teams to go out there and like, we saw this with Justin Herbert last year. We saw this with Russell Wilson last year, right? Those guys got hurt in training camp, but, the Chargers traded for a backup quarterback, but no one's going to want Kirk to be a $27.5 million backup this year. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like, again, only the Atlanta Falcons are going to pay that type of premium for a backup quarterback. So the situation that you're hoping for, if you're the Falcons, is a season-ending injury to another quarterback. And that's basically happened 3 times in the last decade, right? That when you do the math on that, that's less than a 1% chance, right? The 3 times it's happened, right, was in 2016 when Teddy Bridgewater got hurt and then the Vikings traded for Sam Bradford. In 2016, when Tony Romo got hurt, he missed the first 10 games of the season, and the Cowboys in that time tossed the keys to this, up-and-coming rookie by the name of Dak Prescott. And
listen, Minnesota is a place that nobody's on the hot seat, right? And it's weird, but they got another rookie now who got hurt last year again. What if that dude isn't ready? What are they going to do? They went and got Sam Darnold last year. Why not just go and convince Atlanta to send you something or someone that you're very, very familiar with? He can come back home. Hopefully there's no hard feelings. He got paid a lot of money. But this would at least allow the Vikings to keep their season from getting derailed. That's where I'm going with it.
I mean, listen, on paper, it makes a lot of sense, right? I remember when Tom Brady signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Jameis Winston was a free agent. I said, you know what? Look, I'm gonna go outside the box here. And I'm going to say something that's never going to happen in a million years. Jameis Winston should sign back with the Buccaneers and be Tom Brady's backup, learn from him for a few years, and come back with that education and his physical intangibles intact. And I'll tell you right now, like, I look at Jameis Winston today, I think if Jameis Winston had taken that path, he'd be better off today than he is going the way that he did go, right? So, but that was never going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, that was just never going to happen. I don't know the full stories of the Vikings and Kirk Cousins and all that stuff, but it does, feel like a relationship that's probably not going to be rekindled. But before Aaron even got to that part of his conversation, we were on the same track. And I hate to say this out loud because I don't want to curse this dude, so I'm going to knock on wood when I say this, but a team like the Denver Broncos with Bo Nix is a team that stands out to me, because if Bo goes down, even if he goes down with an injury that's not season ending, but like he's going to miss 6-7 weeks, like 6-7 weeks without your starting quarterback, your season might be over by the time he gets back. He's going to need 2 or 3 weeks to get spun back up. You know what I mean? All those things. Like a 6-week injury for a quarterback is really like 8 or 9 before he really starts hitting his stride. So Sean Payton is not a dude that likes to sit around and just wait. Like, Sean Payton wants to attack things. And you look how well the Broncos did last year. They've made some free agent moves. If they draft well, stuff like this, post-draft and, into training camp or whenever it happens, again, knock on wood that it doesn't, but just spitballing here, if Bo Nix were to be a starting quarterback to go down, I can see Sean Payton being like, look, Atlanta, listen, I'll take all that money. I'll take all the money. It's a Jay Cutler deal, basically. Yeah. Atlanta sends Kirk Cousins and a 2026 7th-round pick to the Broncos for a 7th-round pick. Like, basically, you swap 7ths. Denver takes the money. Denver takes Kirk Cousins off your hands, and we just let the thing go. Like, I remember the Jay Cutler deal because it was just so hilarious that the Bears had to send capital and Jay Cutler just get rid of his money.
I know it, right?
You know what I mean? So, like, just a situation like that. But yeah, with Kirk Cousins, I mean, that story right there that Aaron Freeman just shared with us is a prime example of what we're talking about. This is not your gee golly, okay, guys, let's band together and do this type of dude. Like, he's legitimately, I mean, potentially legitimately, I should say, saying, I'm not going to let you trade me until I make sure I go somewhere where I'm the only option. Because you would think that a guy with Kirk Cousins' brand would say, all right, like, if you want to draft a guy, go draft a guy. I'll just beat him in camp. You know what I mean? Because that's the true competitor. And there, I've got a lot of other feelings about that type of approach, but we don't have time on this episode to talk about that kind of stuff. And I don't want to bash Kirk Cousins. So, it is what it is. But the bottom line is, man, it's a quarterback that not a lot of, nobody's climbing over each other to get, and he's going to have to get a job that not a lot of people are in line to have. That's just the bottom line of it. You know what I mean? So we'll see how it pans out. But yeah, I think, like you said, Jalen Ramsey, I mean, for one, if he goes to a team that could use a quarterback, they lose draft capital, they have to pay him the money, whatever, like that. Even if it doesn't directly, correlate, every move, especially for a big name player, impacts other big name players.
And that's what I want to talk about next. I want to talk about Jalen Ramsey. Will he be traded before the draft? There's two guys here that host a couple of teams that he's actually been linked to. Believe it or not, he's been linked to the Jaguars, and people are saying it only makes sense until you think about the fact that they already added two big names, but it only makes sense if Washington does it. So we'll talk about that, discuss Jalen Ramsey and his possibilities to Washington, and perhaps even back to where it all started with the Jaguars. We'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by LinkedIn Talent Solutions. As a small business owner, I've done it twice. Your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means it's time to hire. When it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free and share it with your network and get qualified candidates all in one place. Here's how it works. Post your job. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write your job descriptions and then get your job quickly in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the hiring hashtag frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helped them find high quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, moving on here on Locked On NFL in segment number 2, talking about trade market things that may occur before the NFL draft. We mentioned Kirk Cousins because quarterback is a premium position. Now we're going to talk about Jalen Ramsey. All right, so I'm going to tell you right now, Chris Grier spoke yesterday to the media, said a lot about a lot of stuff. Kyle Krabs is going to discuss some of the things that Chris Grier, the GM for the Miami Dolphins, did discuss. Jalen comes up a little bit in this clip, but we're going to bring Jalen up a whole bunch because our fan bases want us to. The people in Washington and some people in Jacksonville are pondering whether or not this newfound freedom that Jalen Ramsey has mutually agreed with the Miami Dolphins, if it benefits these teams. But first, what's Miami thinking about this? What's the mindset of the people that have their pulse on that team? And nobody does it better than Kyle Krabs with Locked On Dolphins. Check this out.
Miami Dolphins general manager Chris Grier spoke to the media on Tuesday ahead of the 2025 NFL draft. And as you'd expect, everyone's taking it swell. Everybody has their opinion of Chris Grier. He has plenty of detractors. There are plenty of people that are ready to punt on 2025 because of the existence of Chris Grier in the building. Okay, you feel whatever you want. I'll start with Cam Smith, cornerback. Obviously was a marquee player in the Dolphins draft class in 2023. Was the second-round draft choice, the face of the class. We've seen next to nothing of Cam Smith through 2 seasons. And with the Jalen Ramsey trade rumor, Chris Grier was asked about Kader Kohou, and he said Kader's been a Swiss Army knife for us to play inside and outside. But Cam Smith, quote, needs to come through at the end of the day. He's got to stay healthy. We can't hold his hand and wait for him anymore. For all of the things that Chris Grier said that you probably didn't like throughout the course of that press conference, I appreciate this one. I appreciate a direct message through the press to a player who the team has a significant investment in, and that player has not been able to stay healthy.
I'm going to touch on that real quick, and that's the reason I played that particularly. He did mention Jalen a little bit. GMs like that get on my nerves because I'm going to tell you right now, while availability is a skill, staying healthy is not one. Just like, in my opinion, protecting the football is a skill, but not fumbling is not a skill. I don't like when you put things in a vacuum like that and act like a dude got injured just because he woke up and didn't stretch. This is a contact sport, man. You can't always control whether or not you're going to stay healthy or not. So just to say that way, not Kyle, but mainly Chris Greer, I don't know. It kind of bothered me. It kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, look, unless there's some kind of story going on there where he's, he's nursing injuries, he doesn't need to nurse, he's being overly, cautious with his body. Like, to a certain extent, you're a player in this league, you got to understand you got to put some risk on the line. You know what I mean? So unless there's something like that going on, which is a totally different story, I totally agree with you. You know what I mean? Sometimes your body just doesn't agree with the career choice you made, and that's just what happens. You know what I mean? And just because you drafted the dude don't mean he did you wrong. It means that, it just didn't work out.
Yeah, but team building 101 for them, they let Christian Wilkins go, and then I look up and see Van Ginkel making all kinds of plays up in Minnesota, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, I ain't trying to hear nothing they talking about down in Miami until they get some new brass. And maybe Jalen Ramsey feels the same way, and that's why he wants out of there.
Yeah, I mean, look, man, Ginkel made some plays for the Dolphins. I mean, you know what I mean? He wasn't hitting NFL Network maybe as often as he was in Brian Flores, who's just hair on fire, Minnesota Vikings defense. But Van Ginkel was good for the Dolphins too. Look, man, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not going to call Will Greer or Chris Greer not a smart person, but I will say this is a dude who makes some not smart decisions. Right. And he is absolutely on the hot seat. He's got to be on the hot seat. So if you're going to trade Jalen Ramsey, here's where I want to get. Here's where I'm going to surprise you a little bit, Wig. I got two trade possibilities for you that are going to shock you. One, I will admit, is definitely out there, but this one is a little bit less out there. So if you're the Miami Dolphins and you're Greer, you need to hit on your next first round draft pick. Like, you cannot miss on this draft pick. If you're the Cleveland Browns, sitting at number 2. This is a quarterback class, or this is the top of the draft is always the quarterback draft part of the draft. Whether there's a ton of quarterbacks or no quarterbacks, all everybody wants to talk about at the top of the draft is quarterbacks. So if you're the Cleveland Browns and you're not going to draft Shedeur Sanders at number 2, and Cam Ward goes number 1 to the Tennessee Titans, then in my opinion, you have no business not trying to trade that pick. I love Abdul Carter. Don't get me wrong. But Wig, can you turn a franchise around with one pass rusher?
No.
You want to know who knows that? The Cleveland Browns, who got Myles Garrett and have had Myles Garrett. How many playoff games they won with Myles Garrett? Not Baker Mayfield. How many Super Bowls they won with Myles Garrett? I love Myles Garrett. You cannot change the fortune of a franchise with an edge alone. Now, an edge with a whole lot of other players? Yes. Okay. So this is what I'm talking about. Cleveland Browns, you offer up the Miami Dolphins. We'll give you number 2. You give us 13, Jalen Ramsey, and I'm trying to do the math real quick in my head, but you give us 13, your next year's 1, and Jalen Ramsey, and we'll give you number 2. And there might be some other picks that have to get thrown in there to fill out the math numbers. Don't quote me on that draft pick, but you get where I'm going with this, right? The Cleveland Browns dropped from number 2 to number 13. Listen, you need a quarterback of the future. Bottom line, you need a quarterback of the future. You're not getting him at number 2, drop down to number 13. Let's say Shedeur Sanders hits the slide of a lifetime for some reason. Maybe he's still sitting at 13. I don't think so, but maybe he's still sitting there at 13. Then if you draft him, then you might feel more comfortable drafting him, right? Yep. Things like that. Then you collect some more draft capital. Next year, you have another first-round pick where there's might be a better quarterback class, or you need to move up to go get a quarterback, whatever it is, right? Take that 13th pick, trade that back again. Get trade happy with it. Trade back again and go grab you Jackson Dart or Jalen. Like Jalen Milroe personally is my 3rd quarterback, but I don't know who the Cleveland Browns would go, right? Trade back again with maybe, I don't know, the Minnesota Vikings want to come up and go get, Will Johnson, the first cornerback off the board or something like that. That opportunity is there for them. Whatever it is, man, if you're the Cleveland Browns, to me, you have no business picking at number 2 if you can get another team to come up. Even if the Miami Dolphins come up to go get Abdul Carter, because people are already talking about, Wig, you're going to trade Jalen Ramsey. Who is on this defense? So if you're Greer, I keep saying Will Greer, the quarterback from West Virginia.
Yeah, ain't nothing wrong with
Greer, you go up and you get Abdul Carter, who is probably the most can't-miss, quote-unquote, defensive prospect on this draft board this year. Dolphins fans aren't going to necessarily be happy with you, but they're going to be like, okay, let's see if this can spark some things, you know what I mean, and see what we can do with this whole business. So that's trade idea number 1. Trade idea number 2 is definitely a little bit more out there. but I'm gonna let you digest that one first.
I don't mind that. I'm cool with it. They'll have a Penn State edge rusher in Miami 2 years in a row, and maybe they can have bookends down there with him and Chop Robinson. I'm not against it. I do think Cleveland is in love with Travis Hunter, though, so that's why I think they're going to probably.
Travis Hunter is interesting. Travis Hunter is another one. You know what I mean? You can't. Again, I love Travis Hunter, but Travis Hunter alone is not going to turn around your franchise. Here's my left field. Here's my out of left field idea, Wig, and I'll make it quick. The Cleveland Browns. You're not good on offense. Travis Hunter is not going to make you great on offense anyway. So you need to get really good on defense. You got Myles Garrett back. You made him a little bit happy with a little bit of money. There's another player out there that needs to be traded. Trey Hendrickson from the Cincinnati Bengals needs to be traded. If you can get the Cincinnati Bengals, listen, this is why this is crazy. The idea of trading Trey Hendrickson to the Cleveland Browns in state, in the division, that's all kinds of crazy. But also, Cincinnati's picking 17th. You got to move from 17 to number 2. That's a lot of draft capital.
Yes.
The Cincinnati Bengals, in my opinion, are not smart.
Oh,
they've shown that this offseason.
Oh, you texted me that. You texted me that all season, right?
So if you can get the Cincinnati Bengals, and look, you might have to give them like second round value for Trey Hendrickson, right? Look, we'll give you second round value. Tell Trey, we're not going to give you a new contract, brother. What we will do, though, is we will guarantee your existing money because he's got no guaranteed money. That's part of this problem with the Bengals. He has no guaranteed money right now. So you're Cleveland. You sound, look, dude, let yourself get traded here. You got 1 year on your contract. We're not going to give you a new deal, but we're going to guarantee everything you have left on this deal. It's $18 million. Ball out. Go get your fat paycheck next year. Might not be as fat as you want, but go get a fat paycheck next year. We'll take that 2027 third-round compensatory pick, and we're going to take a boatload of picks from the Cincinnati Bengals. We're going to go out, and I don't know, we're going to go get Trey Amos out of Ole Miss. We're going to go out and we're going to get Donovan Ezeraku out of Boston College. We're going to go get Travion Henderson out of Ohio State on day 2. We're going to go get Josh Connerly on day 2 out of Oregon with these picks. Like, we're just going to do a whole lot of stuff to our roster in Cleveland, and then next year we're going to worry about that quarterback. That's just another option. But again, that's a little. I know that's crazy because the Bengals, again, you're in state, you're in the division, all that stuff. But the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson, like, if they don't have a deal done, bro, he's got to get traded draft weekend.
All right, quickly, I'll go here with this. In terms of the Jaguar rumors, because of it's not necessarily about bringing him back into the building. It is really about the relationship he has with Liam Cohen, James Gladstone, and Anthony Campanile, the defensive coordinator. I'm not against it. I don't know if they would love it, and some of the fans will have to actually like erase a whole bunch of tweets because they went at Jalen pretty hard. In terms of Washington, real quick. Cap-wise, does it make sense? They already added 2 big names. Would you like it?
I'm not worried about the money. Jalen certainly in a vacuum fits what the Commanders would like to do. There's been, I remember Jalen talking about being interested in moving out to safety. He's a really good tackler. So having another guy who is, one, versatile enough to play inside, outside, and maybe play in the backfield if you needed him to, and also willing to do that certainly appeals to a team like the Washington Commanders. To me, it's a draft capital because most of the trade ideas that don't involve a player and a pick are a third-round pick. The Commanders don't have a third-round pick. So you're talking about a minimum of 4th-round pick, which is their 4th round is the one they got from Houston in the Laramie Tunsil trade. But if you do a 4th rounder, you're giving them at least another pick this year or a pick next year. You only got 5 draft picks right now as it is. You give them that 4th, you're down to 4. You give them a 4th and a 7th or a 6th, you're down to 3 draft picks. And Adam Peters is definitely a guy who wants to draft. Now, you can trade back from 29 and recoup some stuff. Things like that, but
give him a 3rd and 26. You do it. If he
I wouldn't do it. No, they're already losing a second. They're already losing a second
2-year extension. But you're getting a Hall of Famer on defense, and you got to be Philly.
Yeah, I hear you.
Y'all love those draft picks, man. Y'all hold on those draft picks like a lady in church with those peppermints, man. Y'all ain't letting them go.
If AP decides to do it, I'm on board. I'm not against it. I just don't know that AP is going to be interested in sending any more draft capital away than he already has. Now, again, I don't know what he's got up his sleeve. Like, he may already have, right, like a little bit of a spoiler for our network mock draft because it's already being published. But I had trade conversations with people before we even started the mock draft. You know what I mean? So GMs do that in real life. Like, he may already have a little something up his sleeve for number 29 where he's going to move back and recoup all this, recoup all that. And, I mean, you never know, bro. Like, he could have a trade in place with X team to say, we're going to move back from our 1st-round pick. We'll get your 3rd. Hey, Miami, once that trade is done on Friday, we'll give you our 3rd, that 3rd that we get for Jalen. So just hold up. And that trade is a done deal already. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's all kinds of crazy stuff. I would love Jalen Ramsey on this team because I think he fits. They can make the money work. I'm not worried about the cap hit. I just don't know if AP is willing to send the draft picks.
Fair enough. Gotcha. We talked about teams that may be on the hot seat. We mentioned them both in this segment. They're both in the state of Ohio. James got them. David got them working trades with each other. We'll talk about that more here in just a second on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored by FanDuel. That's right, man. The NBA playoffs are almost here. The play-in game actually started last night, and FanDuel gives new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets. That's $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel. All right, real quick here. We're going to go through, I think Cleveland, Stefanski is on the hot seat, but it's not as hot as the one as the coach in Cincinnati. And the reason why I say that is because of this. At least the ownership in Cleveland has said, look, we did this with Deshaun Watson. And when they say we did this is on us, it's almost like them saying we did this to not only to the fans, we did it to Coach Stefanski. We hamstrung him. We made him do a whole lot more with a whole lot less, and that's on us. At least there's some accountability. The Bengals fired Lou Anarumo, and to me, he was the best part of the team, and now they're going to try to patch it up. I want you to hear James Rapine talk about what they did in free agency prior to this part, and ask me and ask this question: did they help Joe Burrow any?
The Bengals add help on defense. Hi again, everyone. I'm James Rapine from the Locked On Bengals podcast. And whether it was TJ Slayton or Oren Burks, the Bengals knew they needed some new faces on defense. Let's start with Slayton, a big 330-pound nose tackle out of Green Bay. He spent the past 4 years in Green Bay, was a fifth-round pick in 2021 under Jerry Montgomery, who was in Green Bay at the time, is now with the Bengals as their defensive line coach. This makes a ton of sense. He's going to bolster the Bengals' run defense and be a true nose tackle, which they need in the middle of their defense. And Oren Burks, to me, is the perfect Akeem Davis-Gaither replacement. Now, we don't know if Akeem is going to come back or not, but Burks signing a 2-year, $5 million deal makes a ton of sense on special teams for Darren Simmons, a ton of sense as your third linebacker. By the way, Slayton agreeing to a 2-year, $15 million deal. The Bengals defense and the Bengals roster is better now than it was just a few hours ago with these additions. For more, make sure you check out the Locked On Bengals podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
Now, obviously, that was a few weeks ago in free agency, and I played that to tell you this. They blamed Lou Anarumo for everything. And they're going out and signing defensive players. They bought back B.J. Hill, which they should have done. They're looking at it and saying our quarterback and our wide receivers are putting up all-world numbers, and we're scoring all these points, and we're not winning. But you're also playing a brand of football that you have to play because your offensive line stinks and you can't control the ball. You're helping your defense get put back on the field too quickly. I think Cincinnati is the place where that first missile might come in when they start firing coaches.
You know, here's the thing if you're Zach Taylor. You just got to make Joe Burrow happy because clearly Joe Burrow runs that organization. So if Joe Burrow wants Zach Taylor to stay, Zach Taylor's going to stay. If Joe Burrow wants Zach Taylor to leave, Zach Taylor's going to leave. Like that's just the long and short of it. I mean, we have never in the history of the NFL seen a franchise pay their two receivers the way the Bengals did just this offseason. And again, James Rapine and I have had this conversation offline. I hope I'm wrong. I've said it on this program, but I just think it's a very bad decision. Not anything against T. Higgins. I just think it's a very bad fundamental roster building team management decision. I just do. They did it because Joe Burrow wanted it to happen. Joe Burrow runs that franchise. So that's all Zach Taylor's got to worry about. Is Joe happy? If Joe's cool, I'm cool. I will say this about Anarumo, though. I was surprised they fired Anarumo because I'm kind of like, bro, look, he doesn't have a lot to work with on that defense. But the question I would have, not that it matters because he's already fired, but the question I would have, if it, talking about the fairness of it or whatever, would be how much did Lou Anarumo have in terms of contributing to who they drafted? Because the Cincinnati Bengals have tried to give Lou Anarumo resources. Let's go back through this. 2022, defensive back, Dax Hill, 31st overall pick. Cornerback Taylor Britt, 60th overall pick. Zachary Carter, D lineman, 95th overall pick. That's 3 top 100 picks in one draft. Next draft, D end, DB, DB, top 100 picks. That's 6 top 100 picks in 2 years. Last year, they had a D lineman in the top 100, or 2 D linemen, in the top 100. So in the last 4 drafts, right? Did we do that math right? 3 drafts, we got 8 top 100 picks sent to that Bengals defense. So let's not sit back and say, like, well, while the Bengals clearly, yes, they're blaming Anarumo, but let's not go as far, not that you are or anybody else is that I know of because I don't cover the Bengals, but I don't want people to go as far as say, well, the Bengals never tried to help Anarumo out. Nah, bro, they gave him a lot of resources.
I've been telling people
My question, though, would be this. Was Lou Anarumo sitting in the war room going, I want that dude. Yes, I like that guy. Yes, I agree with this pick. Or was he saying, no, not him, the other guy. No, not him, the other guy. Because, and a lot of fans don't realize this, but I have been around teams where first round cornerback and you find out D coordinator wanted the other guy. He wanted a corner. He just wanted a different corner. That corner, Pro Bowl caliber cornerback for the New England Patriots. The corner he got, depth corner for the Rams after being released 2 years into a first round contract. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Commander fans do too. Those things happen. Those things happen more in the NFL than people realize. I mean, like, people have heard the story of Dan Snyder picking Dwayne Haskins, may he rest in peace, from his yacht. And we're like, oh, I can't believe that happened, bro. That happens all the time. Like, stuff like that happens all the time. So that's my question. And it goes back to Deshaun Watson. Here's the reason I would say Stefanski's job should be safe. Because if the Cleveland Browns acknowledge, we gave Stefanski this poop sandwich, we're making you eat it, brother, we're going to give you the breath mint when it's done.
Yep.
Like that's what you owe him. You owe him the breath mint after it's finished. The caveat to that being this, that is a really hard situation. And the truth of the matter is, whether it's Stefanski's fault or not, he could also lose that locker room in the process.
He could.
If he loses that locker room, so he's got to handle this situation very, very well. If he loses that locker room in the process, or if he's lost that locker room in the process, which I don't believe he has, but if he does, as the Browns, you kind of don't have a choice. You got to hit reset. You know what I mean? But if he can keep the rest of the guys on board, because these guys going out there getting in car accidents, bro, every week, understanding they're doing it for a franchise that made a terrible mistake that set them back a decade. So you've got to, as the head coach, be able to keep those guys motivated, invested, locked in, and believing in what you're selling them while you're going through that. That's a really hard thing to do, man, with these guys taking as much punishment as they do. But if Stefanski can keep these guys on board, the Browns owe him. I would say they owe him another quarterback. Yep. They owe him at least one more quarterback. That's what I would say. The other one, you already kind of mentioned the New York Giants. Look, Russell Wilson, to me, if you're in the New York Giants, you want Travis Hunter. So you want the Cleveland Browns to do what I said, trade out for somebody to get Abdul Carter, or they take Abdul Carter. You want Travis Hunter, because I'll tell you right now, bro, I cover the Commanders. I see the Giants twice a year. Russell Wilson is not a bad quarterback. He's not a great quarterback, but he's not a bad quarterback. Russell Wilson, what's his name? Tyrone Tracy, the running back out there. Malik Neighbors, Travis Hunter. That's dangerous. That's dangerous. Win the division.
Very dangerous. Here's my short, quick counter to the Anarumo argument. Yeah. You could very well be right, but sometimes you got to save people from yourself. He's there to coach. He ain't there to pick players. Those coaches don't even watch college football until January. You know what? And to me, that's another organizational problem on the Bengals for having him do something he wasn't supposed to be doing, which it wouldn't surprise me if that's what they were doing. I'll tell you what.
I'll support you on that, because listen, if I'm making the picks and I see the defense needs to go this way, but you won't get that defense going that direction, I need to go find a guy to get that direction. So yeah, you're right. You can make that case going both ways.
You absolutely no. There's no doubt about it. No right or wrong answer with that. Make sure if you want to find out about more prospects that the Bengals could aim at, you check out Locked On NFL with Damian Parsons and Coach Keith Sanchez. They break that thing down like nobody else and tell you about all of those day 2 and day 3 prospects. You don't even know their names on Locked On NFL. Wherever you get your podcast, we will see you back here again tomorrow. Dave will be back next Wednesday with us as always. Thank y'all for spending a little time with us today. We'll see you next time.